Season 5 of The Dragon Prince was enjoyable and a suitable closing to Season 4, but despite enjoying it overall, even after rewatching it a few times, there was a glaring thorn on my side that will not allow me to say that the writing was immaculate. And that is, of course, Rayla. For the Raylan fans, I feel like it is fair to give you a warning that I will be digging into my own personal thoughts on the matter, so please keep that in mind, okay? These are my own thoughts and opinions, and if you love everything about this ship, it brings you joy, and it even gives you life, I'm not gonna be the one to take that away from you, okay? This ship is harmless, it is not that serious, and you should love what you love and be happy, okay? With that being said, if you still wanna continue, I should warn you, I will be criticizing this ship because, I'm just a simple human girl who likes complaining all the time. So, Raylan fans, I cannot reiterate it enough. Please proceed with caution, okay? But with that disclaimer out of the way, I feel like I can be at peace. So, let's get started. Honestly, I don't know that I want this ship to sink entirely, but as things stand, I am no longer on board, okay? I left the dock. At this moment, I don't think I can support it, and it's due to small things that have just continued to pile up. It's just not a vibe anymore. I am gonna try my hardest to verbalize why it no longer sits right with me and why I think this came about. The biggest reason is probably the most obvious, but Rayla has yet to own up to how she's hurt Callum, and her apologizing to him while he's sleeping does not count, okay? That provides zero closure for him or insight. She might as well not have said anything because he literally could not hear it. It was just a waste of screen time. And this is where things get kind of complicated because I don't necessarily think that her leaving him at the end of Through the Moon was a bad call. Rayla leaving alone, in my eyes, is actually justified. Okay, and it's not, hear me out, it's not a contradiction. Rayla is attuned to the moon, which in my world means that she is highly intuitive and she has a hunch that Viren is alive somehow, even before she uses the moon nexus. That is valid. But Callum is a little bit of a hopeless romantic who wants to accompany Rayla on her quest for revenge based on her intuition. Which, the hopeless romantic in me loves that about him, but it is not a wise decision, okay? Not because he is incapable of helping and protecting Rayla, but because Ezran is his brother. Callum has no business going on Rayla's mission now that his little brother is king. Harrow asked him to look after Ezran. He is literally 9 years old, okay? I think Rayla made the right choice by leaving him behind. Plus, Rayla is the one who wants closure. Callum just kind of wants to keep moving forward. So again, I don't necessarily think that she made the wrong choice in leaving alone. The problem is in how she went about it. But, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so let's talk about where the first crack in the relationship reared its ugly ass head. In Through the Moon, we see how Callum wants to help Rayla take her mind off the battle at the Stormspire, but taking her mind off things is just like putting a band-aid to a bullet wound. Traveling to the moon nexus for a vacation does not really help. At this time, they're holding a birthing ceremony for Fifi, and Lujane gives this beautiful philosophical explanation for the cycle of life and death as a binding force that unites all living beings. As life leads to death, death leads to life. So, life and death are a cycle and not an ending. This is naturally incomprehensible to Rayla because phoenixes are unique in that cycle because it is practically immediate for them. Rayla's parents are presumably gone and they can't rise from their ashes like a phoenix or, like from their feather. They have reached a very concrete end, presumably. I'm not sure why she doesn't know about the coins since Viren does mention them in season 3, but that's besides the point. As they gaze upon the lake of the moon nexus, Rayla wishes Lujane could do something more quote-unquote useful to help her reach some closure instead of, some spiel about the cycle of life and death that she does not have the capacity to process and comprehend at the moment. Callum tries to reassure her until Rayla cuts him off and lashes out at him, and the whole conversation takes a left turn. So let's read it word for word. Trust me, I understand what... Do you? You wanted me to move on, remember? You wanted me to forget, to give up. That's not... You're not the only one who's lost people, Rayla. But You know what happened to them. I don't have answers. Yes, I know what happened to them. One of the people you're so worried about killed my stepfather. You know what? You haven't moved on. No one has moved on. I haven't. You haven't. The world hasn't. Keep believing in illusions if it makes you feel better. Whew, okay, that was a lot. And this scene is definitely one that deserves screen time. But alas, let's just get to the analysis. In my opinion, Rayla is absolutely being unfair in this scene. And of course, Rayla is a child, so she is allowed to be emotional and speak thoughtlessly like a human being, or like a person. You know what I mean. But that does not change the impact that our words have on others. And Rayla is honestly being out of pocket here. Like, when it comes to Callum having asked her to move on in season 3, he was insensitive in tone, perhaps, but context is important. So, if you recall, at that time, Rayla is volunteering to stay alone at the Stormspire as an army marches in their direction. Callum is looking out for her safety because she wants to do something stupid. At this point, Callum also accuses her of being prideful, which Rayla denies, but it is not a lie. At this point, she has been ghosted by those in the Silver Grove, and she wants to stay because she feels responsible for the supposed betrayal of her parents and thinks that it all came to this because they fled, allegedly, even though she was also ghosted and what happened did not actually happen. Anyway, if you ask me, Callum had a point. Rayla was staying because of her pride as a Moonshadow elf. But because he hurt Rayla's feelings, Callum immediately regrets saying anything, and you know what happened after that. He used the Moon Opal to find out what happened to her parents and not only give her an account of what really happened, but he validates and expresses support for whatever it is that she wants to do. So, Rayla bringing this up is actually out of context. Callum didn't ask her to move on from the deaths of her parents. He is asking her to move on beyond this rigid idea of being bound by duty that was not hers to begin with. It is established in the Blood Moon Huntress that she specifically refused to train as a dragon guard in favor of being an assassin because she was hurt by her parents abandoning her in favor of their duty, which, it's a little bit hypocritical right now. But anyway, let's go back to that argument because we have not gotten to the height of Rayla's insensitivity. The fact that she brings up the fact that Callum knows what happened to Harrow does not change the fact that he lost him and he can no longer see or speak to him. And also, the fact that Callum knows what happened to Harrow is no thanks to her. She deliberately kept that information from him. Callum found out from Claudia. And Rayla only mustered the courage to try to tell him because Soren was using that information against him. Because Soren's lies were an inconvenience to her and her mission to bring back Zim to Sadia. And more complexity incoming, okay? I am aware that Callum turned around and did the exact same thing to Ezran, and that is a fair point, except not really. Like, I don't really think it's the same. Again, I feel like context is important here. Rayla kept this information from them for selfish reasons. She considered them to be her friends and feared losing that. And again, that is valid, but it doesn't change the fact that she kept that information to protect herself. Callum kept that information to protect Ezran. He just wanted his little brother to have another good night's sleep. That's not to say that it was a wise decision, especially because breaking the news did become harder, but I do think it's different. But I don't know, you let me know. Tag this timestamp and tell me, is Rayla and Callum's lying by omission on equal footing on this scenario? Genuinely, I am not against changing my mind here. But anyway, let's go back to their argument. Callum is now between a rock and a hard place of trying to comfort Rayla and being unable to control his understandable emotional outburst. And also, Rayla has no response or comfort for Callum's inner turmoil, which is also valid. And I do feel like I'm being a little bit harsh on her, but I want to be clear about my thoughts on the matter. I think it's okay that Rayla is unstable and said something foolish. Rayla is a child or a teenager. You know what I mean. She's young, and you know what? Even if she wasn't, she deserves grace. I don't think she's a terrible person or anything of the sort, but what's not okay is never owning up to what she says and how she hurts the ones who love her. And it is especially not okay if she keeps doing the same thing. She never apologizes for her insensitivity in that scenario. And as a matter of fact, it is Callum who feels guilt for this exchange. Again. So Callum goes to Lujane and asks for advice, and the big theme of Through the Moon is this idea of deception, which builds on the half moon wisdom from book 2. But anyway, she gives Callum a pair of moon opals, which he then uses when they rebuild the Moonhenge, unbeknownst to Lujane. And once they rebuild it, Rayla goes into the moon nexus at the height of the full moon, where she can travel into a realm between life and death. She ultimately gets no closure because she doesn't see her parents or Ronan, but she does see Viren in a cocoon. So Rayla is set on finding Viren after her consciousness returns to her body, and Callum agrees to go with her, and she rejects him, but he insists. So she does the predictable thing of lying to him and leaves before dawn. And as I said in the beginning, I don't blame her for leaving because Callum should get his priorities straight. But, like, I don't know. I feel like they could have come to some compromise where Rayla can leave on her own with the promise of sending letters or something. But, you know, like, that didn't happen. What actually happened was Callum lied to Lujane and Rayla lied to Callum. So, you know, what goes around really does come back around. And that was basically the background as to why Rayla is nowhere to be found in season 4. Until, of course, the plot is about to thicken. So she returns, and Callum is understandably conflicted. So his hurt kind of dominates their interactions because he's salty about her random return after not hearing from her for 2 years. But even amidst this, Callum is still the bigger person if you ask me. When she returns, he is overwhelmed, so he tries to leave, but Rayla holds him and says, "We haven't seen each other for 2 years. Don't you think it's worth staying a little past your bedtime?" No. You left for 2 years. Can't you wait 8 hours for Callum to get some sleep and gather his thoughts? Like, Rayla's selfishness is really becoming a sore thumb, and there's nothing wrong with selfish characters. But the fact that Rayla is portrayed as kind and selfless is proving to not have that much substance behind it. But anyway, Callum is like, fine, I guess whatever, and asks what she wants to talk about, and she doesn't know. Girl, aren't you being like a little bit unreasonable? But anyway, at dawn, when Callum is asleep, she contemplates about how she left him trying to pursue revenge and whatnot, and then leaves before he wakes up. Again. Again, I honestly don't understand what she expected and why she continues to be disappointed when Callum doesn't warm up to her throughout the season. Like, girl, you haven't even apologized. What is she waiting for? I'm not saying she has to apologize for wanting to look for Viren because that was justified, but she broke her promise to Callum after he put himself in a very awkward position with Lujane, who had finally acknowledged him as a mage. The next big moment that we get between them is when they're in Umber Tor, where Callum does not bring up her absence for 2 years because why would he? Like, does she expect him to just say, "I forgive you," even though she's made absolutely no effort to apologize? Instead, Callum moves past it to open up to her.
I need you to kill me.
What?
I need you to kill me. I mean, not now.
Rayla is justifiably surprised by Callum's request to kill her, but he explains himself. He is, in fact, vulnerable, and Arvos has already proved that he can control him to cause harm to others. And this is the part that I find baffling. It's not just about being manipulated. He is worried about being a literal puppet. She straight up dismisses his concern, tells him to choose a different path, and walks away from him.
Then take a different path, dummy.
I don't understand. Callum's concern is in fact more pressing than Rayla's was at the end of season 3. Like, yes, they hadn't found Viren's body, and that is a big red flag, but He fell from halfway up to heaven, okay? Anyone with even half a brain cell could have figured what happened to him. Callum is at risk of being puppeted at any given point. Presumably, we don't know the exact conditions, but Arvos already attached his strings to him. Arvos has to escape, so it's guaranteed that Callum's dismissed and unaddressed concern will come to pass. But let's go back to talking about Rayla. In season 5, we start with Rayla's worst moment in the entire saga. Or, I don't know what the future holds, but I hope that the worst is behind us. In this episode, we see Rayla once again deceive Callum, and to top it all off, steal from him. My heart hurts. This genuinely hurts. What the fuck is happening? Literally, a couple episodes ago, she is silently begging him to forgive her, and then she turns around and pulls this stunt. Like, I'm not even saying stealing is wrong. What I am saying is there's a time and a place. That was not it, okay? Callum loves her. Did you not see how he embraced her blade after he thought he'd lost her all over again? He was literally struggling to breathe in her absence. I feel so betrayed. But anyway, let's go back to being mad because this makes absolutely zero sense. Why is she keeping the coins a secret and then stealing from him? Like, there is absolutely no reason to do it. Why did she even bother coming back after getting those coins? Why didn't she just keep going after Viren and put an end to him? That's why she left Callum in the first place, right? For the second time. It must have taken more effort to go back to the drag gang than follow Claudia, who was literally just a couple feet ahead of her. I don't get it. I do get it. I think I know what's happening, and we're almost at the review. I promise. Thank you for sticking with me so far. I love you. Even if you're like, I don't like a single thing you're saying right now. That's okay. You're still here. I love you. But anyway, let's go back to Rayla. After Rayla steals the key and she is caught by the only person with any brain cells in the series, Callum naturally vouches for Rayla, but he has no real reason to trust Rayla. She lied to him about letting him tag along. She never apologized for her betrayal and also her insensitivity. Like, are we just gonna move on? I guess. She doesn't take his concerns seriously and straight up dismisses her. Then she turns around and posts this stunt. Unbelievable. Okay? But I think it's time for me to stop beating around the bush and talk about why you clicked on this video. After a lot of fuming about the direction that her character took, I'm pretty confident about what I think is happening. Rayla stopped being a fully developed character and simply became a plot device. Yeah, as someone who used to love Rayla, it genuinely hurts to say this, but Rayla's entire arc in season 5 and arguably since Through the Moon makes it clear that she has become nothing but a plot device. So let's pull out those receipts. When Rayla steals from Callum, it is clearly a setup for this moment. But this is of course a terrible excuse because that moment does not need setup. We already know that Rayla's an assassin, or trained as one. She is educated in the art of stealth. That moment does not need to be foreshadowed. I believe that Rayla can steal a key from a pirate. No questions asked. That didn't need to be set up. But you know what could have used more setup instead? Her knowing how to pick a lock. Like, does that not make more sense? Have her pick the lock of the office. Like, I know she also picks the lock of the, handcuffs or whatever, but, I don't know. It doesn't hurt to have a couple, scenes of that being foreshadowed. Next, we have Callum's unconditional trust for Rayla, even though she very clearly does not deserve it.
If she didn't tell me, she has a good reason. I know this. The tides are true as the ocean is deep. It means I trust her, unconditionally.
This is just another setup for Callum keeping the fact that he performed dark magic a secret. The thing is, Callum is actually justified in keeping that a secret. And yes, I am going to use this opportunity to complain more about Rayla. The 2 times that Callum has actually had to use dark magic, it is because of, or for the sake of, Rayla. The first time, it was to free Pyra because Rayla did not prioritize her mission and went on her own to save a random-ass dragon.
It doesn't matter what happens to me. Live or die, this dragon goes home.
which in season 4 she couldn't care enough for. She had already failed and was surrounded. Pyra was only saved because of Callum, and she reproached him for it. Like, girl, if you would have just minded your business, he never would have bothered to go back for that goddamn book. By the way, the first instance of Rayla being an outright plot device was in season 4 when she leaves Soren, which contradicts her character that was previously established. But back to Callum using dark magic. The second time he uses it, they're all prisoners aboard a pirate's ship. Both Ezran and Rayla openly discourage him from using it.
Stop! Just take my hand! That's all you wanted, isn't it? Don't do it, Callum! Not again!
But frankly, none of them get a right to judge him for it because, one, Rayla was the one who took them to Scumport and just allowed Ezran and Callum to talk to the big bad of the place. And second of all, Ezran is the reason they're being chased, so... But anyway, Callum still resists until Rayla behaves rashly and frees herself. To what end? Would it not have been better to bide her time and free the others too? But alas, she proves to be a menace as a prisoner, so she is used as bait to get the information out of Callum for the spell of revenge. The true selfless one in this ship is obviously Callum. He once again betrays his resolve and values to save Rayla and everyone involved. Now we get this moment of justification of the poem.
The tides are true as the ocean is deep.
But the thing is, if the creators are committed to not adapting the events of what happened in Through the Moon, they could actually make a callback to Lujane's wisdom. If the truth doesn't work, perhaps you just need to build the right illusions. Anyway, I'm convinced Rayla is nothing but a plot device because all the extra material relating to her is to advance the plot, and it kind of even clashes with her established personality. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the Moon graphic novels and the short story Chasing Shadows, but this short story is what firmly establishes her as a plot device. In Chasing Shadows, we see her near the end of her journey where she goes to Scumport, likely to introduce us to that location and Finnegrin, and this is also when we see what kind of orders he gives Elmer, formerly known as Deadwood. So when she asks,
Callum! What is he doing to you?
girl, what do you think? If anyone can figure it out, it should be her. But back to Chasing Shadows, we are introduced to this location and a new character, Redfeather. But do we see her? No, and it is also thanks to Redfeather that Rayla figures out what kind of place this is. She very clearly tells Rayla, if you want something in this port, you offer up the right price or a favor. So like, why are you going around asking people to act out of the goodness of their heart? Like, you should already know that you're dealing with reasonable business folk. The next example of Rayla being used as a plot device is when she finally decides to confide in Callum about having those coins, which is just an excuse to keep them in the library past hours. And I was just gonna leave it at that, but this is apparently a ranting video. I feel like this is just another example of Rayla being unattuned and even insensitive to Callum's feelings. Why are you giving him Runan's coin? I know she didn't get to see when he first saw the bow and arrow, but like, he literally did not want to see or touch that weapon that killed Harrow. He also kind of recoils in season 5 when he is presented with it, but again, he prioritizes Rayla, and at this point, I feel like he's only overcompensating because unfortunately, he has abandonment issues now. Anyway, I feel like I don't really think Rayla is as Callum sees her. Like, yes, she is kind and she is brave. That is not the same thing as being selfless. And I would even go so far as to say that she's not even that considerate. The last example of Rayla being used as a plot device is when she becomes the deciding factor as to where the Dragang should head next. Rayla is the one who suggests that they learn how to kill a Star Touch elf from the beginning. So my question is, why didn't she choose to go get the Nova Blade? Like, I am confused, okay? They literally went to the Great Bookery to find that information. They stay past hours because she couldn't wait to share her burden with Callum, at least until, they were out of the library for the day. Then shenanigans happen, Subea is corrupted, and after all that, she still doesn't choose the Nova Blade? I don't understand. And like her decision is not even on screen. Most, if not all her actions are to drive the plot. But anyway, it's honestly very frustrating. I really hope Rayla can return to being a fully fleshed out character and not just a device to advance the plot or just to create some drama. I want to put my hope and trust in the overarching story, but I can't help but not like this development as it stands right now at the end of season 5. At the same time, I'm also hesitant to place blame with the writers entirely because I really feel like they're being rushed. And I mean, they do work for corporate overlords, so I don't know. I know that the writers are trying their absolute hardest because the short stories are absolutely immaculate. And I've also read books 1 and 2, so I can confidently say, respectfully, that the shows are basically the first draft of the story. I'm sure some of these things will be adjusted slightly to make more sense in the novelization, but if you're a show only, that is fair. The show should be able to stand on its own, and that is not an unreasonable expectation to have. But you know, I do recommend the books and short stories if you want a more immersive experience of the world of Sadia. Anyway, I know I got kind of emotional in this video, so I understand that other people are also likely to feel strongly about where they stand with Rayla and specifically Raylan. And that's just how life works. There are good things about the ship, but starting from Through the Moon and onwards, the questionable things are just leaving a bad taste in my mouth, and it's not like it's just one bad thing that happened. It is a sequence of events. I do think it is a result of Rayla being used as a plot device, so that can hopefully be improved, but when it comes to the relationship, what is done cannot be undone. Raylan has just kind of soured for me a little bit, and you know, I'm allowed to change my mind in the future if there's a strong comeback, but at this point, I'm just not very attached to the ship, and I'd honestly be okay if it sank. That is also life. Not every ship is a forever ship. But whether you agree or disagree, let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think about that argument that they had in Through the Moon? Because that was an intense one. Am I an absolute heretic for abandoning the Raylan ship? Do you think Rayla has become nothing but a plot device? And did I miss any other examples of that being the case? Let me know. But other than that, no matter where you stand on Raylan, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the pretty like button, subscribe if you want to join this glimmering moon nexus, and hit the bell if you want to be notified whenever the stars align. But until then, Tenebras Post Lux.